This is Charter Local Edition. My name is Brad Pomerance in the Inland Empire. Today we are joined by Mark Takano. He is a member of the U.S. Congress representing significant portions of the IE. I have known you for over 2 decades, and I've always respected you and seen you as a bright, thoughtful, methodical individual. I never would have defined you as a humorist, yet you have received a reputation as one funny congressman.
Well, I wear that mantle somewhat cautiously.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
but here's what's interesting about this whole new kind of label you've received. Mother Jones, a few years ago, wrote an article, "Most congressmen are boring. This one is funny on purpose." And so I think it's said with respect.
Yes. Well, it's humor with a purpose, and we're never mean. We're never attacking people personally. We focus our humor on issues, and social media allows us to do that.
Oh, yes, it does.
It does. So
let's talk about your latest quip, because it was a good one,
Yeah.
and it got national attention. You posted an ad in Craigslist.
Or
was it a fake ad?
It was a fake ad.
Fake
we
ad.
we created it when we did a screenshot.
Got it. I see.
We had the feeling that Craigslist would probably remove it.
I
very
understand.
quickly, right?
I understand. So it was a fake ad, and what was the ad advertising?
It was advertising for a speaker.
Speaker
of
of
the House, Speaker of the House of Representatives. We knew that my Republican colleagues were having some trouble.
Right.
Once Majority Leader McCarthy dropped
Right.
out of the race, we said, oh, well, we got to help them out a little. So we thought of we tried to, in the ad,
Right.
also reflect the troubles they're having in trying to acquire a speaker.
But what's so remarkable is that 20 years ago, you could never have engaged in this type of repartee because there was no social media. Maybe you'd fax this out or whatever it may be, but the speed with which these quips can come out is remarkable.
Well, that's what's powerful about social media, whether it's Facebook or Twitter. It allows us to, one, engage voters and the American people
Right.
rapidly, in the moment. And my office, we've become adept
Right.
at being able to respond topically and in a timely way.
But I have
and
to,
humor is a
Right.
real key to that.
But I have to think it's tricky because, when you're trying to be funny, look, some people cross the line. You have not, and I doubt you will, but it can
There's
be
always
dicey.
There's always that risk, and that's why you need a team
Right.
that is not only creative but also has good judgment and good discretion.
Did you anticipate, though, that this mock Craigslist ad would go so viral?
No, we didn't. We can never tell what idea is going to catch hold.
Right.
We were just sitting around. I don't want to say we're sitting.
No,
around.
I know what you're saying. Yeah, you were.
But the events were moving with such rapidity.
Right.
And velocity. I said, we ought to create a pool,
Right.
like a sports pool. Like,
Right.
let's take bets on who the next speaker is going to be.
Right.
And we said, no. He says, how about a Craigslist ad? And then, so my team was like chortling. I was like, oh, that's funny.
Right.
And so, it was a good little device to kind of portray the dilemma.
On a more serious note, as we speak today, there is no speaker,
There's no
or
speaker.
there's no speaker designate.
That's right.
Are you surprised by this? Would you have ever anticipated that your friends on the Republican side of the aisle would have such difficulty landing their next leader?
I was waiting for the president of China at an
Yes.
event at the White House, 2 days after the Pope. They called it the Pope in D.C. after party.
Yes, okay.
Because 15,000 people showed up at the White House for the Pope.
Right.
And then maybe 3,000 or 4,000 showed up for the president of China, which is not a small number
Okay,
of people.
okay.
But while we were waiting during those summers, I got the news
Right.
from my colleague Tulsi Gabbard. And then,
A Democrat.
a Democrat, and then I looked at Eric Paulson,
Right.
of a moderate Republican from
Okay.
Minnesota.
Okay.
His eyes got real big. He clearly
didn't know?
He didn't know. He was at a caucus meeting just earlier that day. Had no idea that this was happening.
That Mr. Boehner had chosen
and
to
there
move
And there
on.
were 12 of us members in
Right.
the Congress, and we were just all in shock.
Right.
So the answer is no. We could not have imagined that the Speaker would announce his
Right.
retirement.
But add to that, not only was one surprised by the announcement of the retirement, but one would have presumed that Mr. McCarthy, a Californian, was going to ascend.
In the couple of days after this, you know, believe it or not, I actually, I'm in cordial relationships with some of the Tea Party.
One would hope.
Yeah, some of the members.
Well, they're colleagues.
They have deeply felt opinions
Right.
of different minds, but they're colleagues still. And I said, "What are you all doing over there?" And they say, "Well," he says, "Well, some of us don't really trust Mr. McCarthy any more than we trust Mr. Boehner."
But here's my question.
Yeah.
Was it a bit disappointing that Mr. McCarthy did not ascend for you? Because look, he's a Californian, you're a Californian. And so, you know, one would have thought that that would benefit California generally, even though he's a member of the opposite party.
Well, you know, to some extent, but we would benefit far better if we had another Californian that they chose as Speaker, which is Nancy Pelosi.
Right, well, she's a Democrat, so you would need a switch in power.
Well, here's the fundamental problem.
Right.
The Republican caucus is so dysfunctional. They are simply not really able to govern effectively. So many things that should be coming to the floor for a vote aren't coming to the floor for a vote. And if they allowed just simple democracy to work, they allow the House to work its will on things like immigration reform.
Right.
And even on one of the proposals that I'm putting forward in my poverty report that I just sort of brought issued yesterday. So the thing about social media, Brad, is that it allows us to enlarge the audience that engages with my office. The social media, the humor that we use allows us to provide a window of opportunity to communicate with our voters with a more serious purpose.
I want to talk about poverty
Yeah.
because you've issued reports similar to this in the past.
Yes.
And we know the Inland Empire was hit very hard during the recession. Your district did better than other areas, but still.
Well, our district was very seriously hit by the mortgage, the crisis. Foreclosures were serious. Big hedge funds came in and bought up swaths of property, and we're using the rents, not mortgage payments, to secure. So we were seeing a drain of wealth out of our community.
So
rather than,
how is the IE doing? Is poverty up
well,
or down?
Well, poverty is still up from 2010. It's better than 2012, but it's still up even as the unemployment rate has been cut in half, and even as the nation as a whole is doing better. Nearly 1 in 4 children in the IE are living in poverty. And so we try to use our social media also. We try to use the humor to bring people in, and while we have their attention, to also get them to focus on topics that are hard to say that we gotta face these problems. So there's 3 things that we think we ought to do.
Please.
1, raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. And you know that some states, red states in our country in the last election cycle, even in the midterm elections where Democrats lost more seats, some red states actually passed minimum wage laws which raised the minimum wage in those states. Second would be to address housing. We've got a 30,000 person housing waiting list for Section 8 vouchers.
In the IE?
In Riverside County.
Just the
Riverside County. We found in this report that housing, access to that benefit, was often the difference between a family being able to be $100 or so above water versus $600 in debt.
Third, very quickly.
The third would be the Earned Income Tax Credit and the Child Tax Credit. There's many more things we have, but those are the 3 most impactful things.
You'll come back.
Yeah.
His name is Mark Takano. He is a member of the U.S. Congress. I'm Brad Pomerance. It's Charter Local Edition.